Hello everybody and welcome back.
iDubbbz, or Ian W, is a YouTuber who has been around since about the early 2010s. He had some early success with his Kickstarter crap series, where he would satirize and criticize Kickstarter projects that he found to be impractical and or shameless attempts at securing a few quick bucks. His channel grew steadily over the years, but saw the most success from his acclaimed Content Cop series, a series where he would attack other creators for lazy or manipulative practices in character as a police officer. The series featured anything from skits, public stunts, music, and even a cameo from the massively popular hip-hop artist Post Malone, all tied together with his patented brand of crass language and offensive jokes. One notable example was his Tana Mojo Content Cop, where he drove several hours to one of her events to pose as a fan and say the gamer word.
Say homie or like friend.
It caused her to completely combust on social media, subsequently having her own hypocrisy exposed. However, in recent years, due to a lower cultural tolerance of offensive content, Ian has toned his content down far below the peak inflammatory levels of the 2016 to 2017 era, turning to new and more creative outlets such as his recent documentaries on Dax Flame, Airsoft Fatty, and, as we'll be talking about in this video, Sam Hyde. Sam Hyde is who you might consider to be a more traditional comedian. Active since 2007, Sam is known for his eccentric personality and general unhingedness. He's perhaps most known for his public stunt 2070 paradigm shift, an absurd TEDx talk he gave at Drexel University in 2013, where he made a total mockery of public inspirational speaking for nearly 20 minutes.
Trash economy. You use cubes of trash as money. By my calculations, we have 5 years until the world ends. The major cities will be replaced with vast pleasure domes, used exclusively by the Excelsiites.
From there, Sam's popularity began to balloon, gaining a cult following who celebrated Sam's maniacal personality, even pulling stunts of their own, such as the time-honored tradition of falsely reporting him as a domestic terrorist. This growing popularity, as well as Sam's unique style, led to the popular television network Adult Swim greenlighting his 2016 sketch show, $1 Million Extreme Presents World Peace. However, if Sam is anything, he is uncompromising. Unlike other comedians who get their big break, Sam made no attempt to sterilize his public image or beg for forgiveness for his previous edgy and offensive jokes. And once journalists started shining the spotlight on him and the things he had once said, whether they were serious or not, he had to have been seen as more and more of a liability. While the episodes that aired were popular, Adult Swim eventually got cold feet and declined to make a second season. Since then, Sam has been producing his own content independently with the paid subscription service Gumroad, including Hyde Wars and Kickstarter TV, a series which bears more than a passing resemblance to iDubbbz Kickstarter crap, although it's unclear to me which came first or whether one influenced the other. Already, the similarities are beginning to stack up. Both are willing to risk public embarrassment or criticism for their content, and both have undeniably creative chops that lead to unique and engaging videos, and as I mentioned, some of their ideas even intersect. So it nearly seems like it was fate that brought them together for that week in March 2021 when iDubbbz came to call. Before we get into that, we need to fast forward to January 8th, 2022, when Sam released a 2-hour video named The Truth About iDubbbz to YouTube. The video starts with Sam in a room with a few friends, including fellow World Peace alum Nick Rochefort, where he explains that iDubbbz came to visit in March 2021 to shoot a documentary with him in the hopes of exploring a week in Sam's life to take a look under the hood to see what makes him tick. But something seems to have gone woefully awry during this encounter. Sam expresses remorse as he does not believe Ian came away feeling positive about the project, Sam, his friends, or any part of the experience at all, evidenced by the fact that nearly 1 year later, the documentary had yet to come out, and iDubbbz was not returning his DMs. So coupled with the fact that Sam believed the footage would make for a funny video, as well as that it had come at a significant personal expense, Sam and his crew cut the footage together into a video of their own.
So that's what we're gonna do.
Here's what happened.
Jet's cutting it up, and it's not to like,
this is what happened.
In the resulting video, it's immediately clear that Sam had no intention of playing along with what iDubbbz wanted. He had his own idea of what he felt would make the funniest video, and had been hard at work with the rest of his crew planning it all. But most critically, Ian was not in on it. In short, Sam and his friends wanted to do a bit of trolling. Although, as Sam stresses numerous times, this was apparently to make the video funnier, not to make Ian look foolish.
It's not to make iDubbbz look stupid or anything, or like do anything like, oh, burn, we took your documentary footage and released it first, dude.
These ideas included content from what they introduced as the iDubbbz gaslighting document, with concepts that stretched anywhere from buying a bunch footage of dead wasps to hiring an actress to shave her head and act as Sam's crackhead girlfriend.
G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it.
After reading just a few of these frankly insane ideas that Sam and his crew had developed, you'd probably expect this to have panned out as one gigantic clusterfuck of a video. And you'd be correct. We'll get into exactly how it panned out in just one moment. Following the release of Sam's video, which currently sits at around 2 million views and 90k likes, the pressure for iDubbbz to release his cut of the documentary began to mount. It was the most popular thing Sam had released in a long time, and people wanted to see the rest of the story. They began to pester Ian on YouTube and Twitter to release his response, including portions of the encounter that Sam had not caught in camera, which primarily amounted to extra interview footage. And eventually, Ian did just that, dropping the full-length documentary, Getting Away With It, on February 2nd, nearly 4 weeks after the premiere of Sam's video. Unlike Sam's video, which was more or less of a vlog variety, this cut contained commentary and cutaways that were meant to provide context to the events, as well as make an overarching point about Sam's character. So what do these two videos consist of? Does the content of Sam's video contradict his insistence that it was not intended to put Ian in a bad light? Was Ian's video a hit piece that was intended to make Sam look problematic? Well, we're about to find out. The two videos share much of the same footage, so we're not going to be doing a play-by-play of each video individually. However, during the discussion, we are going to be pointing out where they differ, starting with the beginning. In Ian's video, he introduces the topic of the video, saying that he has been aware of Sam's content for some time and wants to get some insight into who he is as a person and what makes him tick. In what you might consider foreshadowing, he adds that he hopes this isn't a struggle.
Really hoping that this isn't going to be a struggle.
The first stop is Sam's office, which, as we're going to find out later, is nothing more than a dental office space that he and his team rented out for the video. There's a lot happening in the office. Across both videos, we are introduced to members of Sam's crew, some of whom actually do produce videos with him, but definitely not to the extent that Sam lets on. We're introduced to Joey, who acts as a producer of Sam's content, but in this case is pretending to be a hip-hop producer. Wrecking Ball, who is apparently the self-proclaimed most jacked skateboarder in the world, is acting as security in the office, but Ian doesn't seem to know who he is, and while suspicious and a little put off, he ultimately doesn't think too much of it. In fact, amidst all of the commotion, to Ian's credit, he does catch on to the shenanigans pretty quickly into his tour, accusing Sam of staging all the computers, music, and chatter for his visit.
You guys aren't doing this every day, though. It doesn't look like this all the time. This is a show, right?
But Sam denies this, and Ian seems to take his word for it. After traveling to Chick-fil-A and being bullied by Sam about wearing a mask, Ian comes back to the house to meet Danny, which he says in a cutaway was an interaction he was very excited for.
She could give me honest, truthful answers to how Sam really is and all the other questions that I had.
Ian hasn't exactly been able to crack Sam open like an egg at this point, so a significant other might be a much more reliable source for insights into Sam's personality. But as soon as he meets her, it's abundantly clear she will be providing no such inside scoop. To her credit, she plays the role of a crackhead really well, but maybe a little too well, because this is the first thing that makes Ian visibly uncomfortable. When Sam introduced this idea, it's clear he didn't think the optics would be a problem.
And she was like totally believable. She was like acting drugged out and like, that's fucking nuts.
Awesome.
But in practice, to those not in on the joke, it looks like Sam is neglecting an individual close to him with serious substance abuse problems. A few interviews commence with various crew members where everyone refuses to drop the act.
I am Jed Neptune, that is my name. I am 22.
And this is a serious thing, it's not a joke.
What is?
No,
I'm actually security for Sam, yes.
I was acting. Or was I?
Sam and some of his other crew members are discussing ideas for their next viral hit with strokes of genius such as, and I quote, hot girls playing with Legos.
New trend where like hot girls are like playing with Legos?
Yeah. Do we know any hot girls?
No.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Both videos contain a portion where Ian and Sam box, and interestingly enough, Sam's video makes more of an effort to make Ian look better than Ian's own video. There isn't much to say here, but Ian clearly isn't proud of his performance, saying he was worried to give it his all, lest Sam takes it as permission to strike back harder, Cobra Kai style.
It gives him permission to go crazy if I do hit him in the head.
Then Ian goes to interview Sam's $1 million extreme stream associate Nick Rochefort, and Sam tags along. Via title cards, Ian implies that Sam wasn't invited to come along, but decided to show up anyway. Nick talks a little bit about the MDE days and how the environment wasn't for him. Ian tries to get his thought on Sam's craziness, but this attempt falls flat as Sam chimes in asking why Ian thinks this, sparking a small discussion about Ian's opinions of the Danny situation.
I think your relationship makes me think that a little bit. I think a lot of...
Oh, Danny?
Yeah.
Why?
We'll get into it.
What would you suggest that you leave her so she kills herself?
No.
And then for the rest of eternity,
you don't even know what
Sam Hyde's girlfriend kills herself. You saw her.
But this is tabled for the climactic interview, which we'll get to in a minute. First, Ian has to give us his impressions of the situation so far. This is the part of the video referenced by the title of Ian's documentary, Getting Away With It. Ian draws a difference between the persona of Sam Hyde and what he envisions as a more classical comedian archetype, as Sam has said and done some things that are difficult to write off as jokes. There are comments he's made where you're never really sure if he's being serious or not on topics such as race and gender. People generally don't make jokes about subjects for which they have absolutely no opinions, and if you're doing observational comedy about a particular subject, there obviously has to be an observation underlying it. Thus, Sam can get away with saying outlandish things because his fans who might ordinarily be offended by his comments will turn a blind eye to things that they may disagree with by categorizing them as jokes, even if they were meant to be serious. To elaborate on this, Ian decides to talk about what he describes as the stages of irony, but as I want to demonstrate, this analysis has some flaws. Most people will define irony as the expression of one's meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, typically for humorous or emphatic effect. Irony is found everywhere, but Ian focuses on rhetorical irony. For example, saying, "My day is going great," after learning that the NFT you invested your son's college fund into was rug pulled. Irony is almost always used for comedic purposes because it goes hand in hand with the concept of the unexpected, a realm in which comedy thrives. A quick side note, throughout this explanation, I want to make it clear that there is no apparent consensus on what the precise terms to describe irony as a spectrum should be, only that there probably is some type of spectrum or list of levels of irony. This is why it's inaccurate for myself or iDubbbz, as he does in this video, to present a single model as fact. But I think for simplicity's sake, most viewers will understand the spectrum of irony like this. Sincerity is where you say what you mean. Irony is where you say what you don't mean, but imply what you do mean. Post-irony is where you say what you may or may not mean, but intentionally keep it unclear. And back to the beginning with new sincerity, where you say something that may have once been implied to be ironic, but has now clearly become sincere. When Ian describes irony, he describes it as basically just sarcasm.
And it's basically just sarcasm.
I think I had a sarcasm once.
For example, if someone asked the Cookie Monster if he wanted a cookie, and he said, "Of course I don't want a cookie." Sarcasm is related to irony, but I personally don't think it's super relevant here, as it's more of a specific brand of irony rather than its own distinct level. This means that the rest of his version of the spectrum is a little off kilter. For example, his definition of post-irony is closer to what my and probably your understanding of regular irony is than the definition I gave of post-irony.
This is where you say something in a way that makes it sound like you don't mean it when you actually do mean it.
The final level Ian discusses is what he calls meta-irony. Ian describes meta-irony as saying something in such a way where it's unclear if you were being ironic or not, which is pretty much exactly how I explained post-irony. But notice that my cycle didn't end with post-irony, while his does end with meta-irony, which is an important note for later. This concept is therefore a combination of what I described as irony and new sincerity. New sincerity is a concept that has become increasingly common in pop culture and can be described as the endpoint from the progression of each level of irony. If you're confused, let me give you an example. Like if I made the statement, the Star Wars prequels are bad. About 15 years ago, this was a relatively uncontroversial opinion and it would have been understood that it was sincerity with little ambiguity. Now let's say I then said, the Star Wars prequels are great, right guys? Because, as I said, there was a general consensus that these films were of poor quality. You could be reasonably certain I was saying they were good ironically.
Ironic.
Maybe I think they're so bad it's good, but obviously I don't sincerely think they are good movies. But then, let's say I stuck to my ironic position for an extended period of time, and say I started participating in subreddits in defense of my position. Then when the new Star Wars sequels began to release, starting in 2015, I I harshly criticized them for being inferior and less original than the prequels. My opinion on the matter is no longer clear, because I'm committing to the irony and justifying my ironic position a little more energetically than one would expect. Eventually, as I retain this position, more people start to agree with me, and maybe nostalgia for the prequel starts to come into play. After all, Obi-Wan and Mace Windu were pretty cool, and those blue space bomb thingies make such a cool noise when they explode in Episode 2. You see, at this point, enjoying the prequels is no longer all that controversial, and one could say I am just sincerely enjoying the prequels. We have thus completed the cycle and arrived finally at new sincerity. And this is not the only example where we find such a phenomenon. Literature, music, philosophy, and yes, politics are all influenced in this way.
I hear Kofefi.
I suppose the biggest problem I have with Ian's video is that his model doesn't make room for new sincerity, which defeats the purpose of describing the levels of irony as a cycle entirely. In fact, by crudely superimposing meta-irony on top of sincerity, it almost implies they are the same thing, but they're not. Meta-irony, or what I would call post-irony, only makes sense when shown relative to irony and new sincerity. The fact that Ian's circle chart is a little misleading may seem like pedantry, but in my opinion, it leads us to a revelation about how Ian's approach to getting to know Sam is problematic and doesn't provide a helpful picture of Sam to the viewer. It's an issue of missing the forest for the trees. Ian is attempting to make the point that by Sam living in the realm of post-irony, it is impossible to tell when he's being sincere or not.
I think eating shit is awesome. What the f? You like eating shit? I was just kidding. Are you stupid or something? Well, now I feel bad for being unaware of any irony going on, so in the future, I will not criticize you for anything you say. I am now invulnerable to criticism.
But I think this is a drastic oversimplification. For example, Ian himself said that there are gems to be found in Sam's motivational and self-help content in his series Hyde Wars. So clearly Sam is sincere sometimes, but I think Ian's problem is that Sam isn't being sincere on Ian's terms. Ian's observations seem to be somewhat tainted by the fact that he, so far, hasn't gotten past Sam's walls during his encounter, but he needs to look at the bigger picture. Let's take a look at earlier in the video where Sam and Ian were driving to Chick-fil-A. Ian makes the observation that it would be helpful if Sam made it clear when he's being serious, and Sam completely rejects this idea out of hand, even making a mockery out of it.
I think it might help for the viewers. When you say something like that, if you're serious, you say 100% serious.
100% serious. How about this, Tom? Let's say, baby Sammy, serious!
You can read this as Sam being dismissive to constructive criticism, stubbornly sticking to his shtick so he can have an easy way out whenever he says something controversial. I don't find this to be very convincing though, because if that's his way of avoiding criticism, it hasn't worked. Most media organizations espouse the view that Sam is a problem dog, so you would expect that once the cat was out of the bag and his comments were put in a negative light, he would do one of two things: denounce everything controversial he has said as just jokes, embracing the level of irony. This is what most comedians do when jokes they've told that are now considered offensive are brought to light. Another method is to completely embrace these ideas unironically and become a proponent for them, reaching the level of new sincerity, a path that controversial figures such as Owen Benjamin took. But from what I can tell, Sam hasn't done either of those things, and his views haven't really evolved much. This is what I think Sam is. I think Sam is the type of person who does not feel comfortable putting all his cards on the table when people ask him to. I think he reveals exactly as much information as he feels he wants to share in the way that pleases him. It seems likely to me that his viewers don't know where exactly he stands on political issues, nor do they really care. What matters is that Sam is entertaining to them, so when he says something post-ironically, they just laugh it off and don't spend any energy considering if it fell closer to irony or new sincerity, which is completely unlike how Ian is approaching Sam, hence all the frustration we've seen, and it's about to get much worse. Last, we get to the climactic part of both videos, the Sam Hyde interview. In Sam's interview, he only had footage up to a certain point, but I want to talk about how this part of both videos was publicly perceived. Both Sam and Ian's cuts give us completely different interpretations of the encounter, and it all starts with the framing. In most interviews, you have two camera angles set up for the interviewer and the subject. The subject is positioned to the left of the frame, and the interviewer is positioned to the right, or vice versa. In Ian's video, Sam is on the left, and Ian is also on the left. It might not seem that important, but these conventions are here for a reason, and breaking them can create a feeling of imbalance to the conversation. Sam's video, however, was obviously released first, and frankly, it looks even worse. I want you to take a look at the frame here and let me know who looks like they're in control here. Sam is positioned slightly higher and has a forward stance, so Ian might feel a little intimidated. And at the same time, Sam is feeling uncomfortable and on edge. One thing that both videos capture several times is Sam repeating that he doesn't like having static with people.
I don't like having static with people that I actually like. I honestly don't like when I have like static with people.
And there is no shortage of that in this interview. As for the interview itself, Ian starts by bringing up their first interaction from about 8 years ago, where Ian made a Kickstarter crap video on Sam's joke Kickstarter campaign and how Sam dealt him a copyright strike. When you receive a copyright strike, your video is taken down and you have to go through a complicated process to get it back up, which could take months if you're successful at all. I've received partial copyright strikes on videos in the past where movie studios block my content from playing in specific countries, and it's a frustrating experience. However, this was a long time ago, and given this is the first thing Ian comes up with, the optics are friendly to anyone who saw the uncut footage. There were people who legitimately thought Ian brought up the strike to expose Sam and make him look like a scumbag.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's what led to this day today.
Really? Okay, yeah. So are you gonna punk me?
You're getting punked.
Really? How are you gonna punk me?
I'm gonna make you look like an asshole.
Really?
Which isn't hard to do.
Is that really the case?
No.
I think Ian was serious.
You think he was serious? I thought
Yes.
I was joking there.
Yes.
And while I interpreted this as Ian's fumbled attempt to draw a personal connection to Sam, which is ultimately what Ian implies in his video, I can see where the people who thought it had belligerent intentions were coming from. I guess I only wish that Ian had been a little more upfront about it in his interview. As he passes the confusion it causes off as Sam misunderstanding his intentions.
I don't think Sam realizes how much I don't care about our first interaction. It was like a little bit annoying for me at the time because I've never dealt with like a copyright claim. It was my first experience interacting with Sam. It's an interesting thing to bring up, but it wasn't meant to be like a surprise, you're pranked. It's more like, hey, here's an interesting bit of info that you didn't know about.
But the rest of the interview is only a little less botched. For example, when Ian tells Sam that Sam is being punked, he cuts in a clip of him pointing to meta irony on his circle model, which is just confusing.
So are you gonna punk me?
You're getting punked.
Really?
Is it because you're, doing so much that you just sort of forget all the bridges you burn and all the like people you with?
Did I burn a bridge with that?
I could have been, but I'm a resilient person, so I turned that hate into a passion for filmmaking, which is why I'm here.
Is the implication supposed to be that Ian is attempting to give Sam a taste of his own medicine? Because if Ian finds this type of rhetoric to be confusing, why would he employ it in the interview? It seems as though the only person in the interview who's being sincere so far is Sam, which of course is very ironic. With all the tension that is built, Sam is no longer answering the questions and is instead asking questions of his own. And Ian seems to struggle to get the power back in the conversation.
Let's start off with what content are you most proud of that you've created?
I don't like the order this is going because you're I don't want to give you any honest answers to questions like what are you most proud of and then have you hit me with something like weird. So just get into the weird shit.
Nonetheless, there is one good segment of the interview where Ian gets what I believe is a sincere point out of Sam. Ian talks about how he himself has made unsavory content in the past in an attempt to criticize the culture, which is probably an allusion to the time he went to Tana's fan meetup to say the gamer word. In that case, the point Ian was trying to make was that it's silly to hold one offensive word above all other offensive words.
I'm gonna wrap up this video with a phrase that most logical people can get behind. I mentioned it earlier in the video, and that is, it's either all okay or none of it's okay.
But the window inevitably shifted on this subject, and even publicly possessing this opinion would be seen as deeply problematic in today's culture. So Ian has left that realm of content in pursuit of things that, in the eyes of society, will age a little better.
And I've done some like unsavory stuff on YouTube. And it's all good. I've been able to get messages out there. It hasn't been like super, I think I've come to a similar conclusion that you have, which is like, it's not necessarily my place, nor is it like super productive to kind of preach at people per se.
Sam states that he had realized that the culture is not kind to the types of content that he wants to make too, but not because he felt it wasn't his place. Moreover, the platforms where he would put his ideas out to the masses do not want to host him anymore, so he instead focuses on helping a smaller audience of people on his subscription-based content work on themselves.
I think that it's kind of over for freedom of speech for the type of type of that I would want to represent if I was out there doing something like 100% serious with my heart in it. I think it's probably that's like a suicide mission at this point.
I think this is a significant part of the interview, as Sam is, for the first time since Ian has arrived, providing sincere answers to Ian's questions. But here's the catch. Ian doesn't include this in his documentary for some reason. Maybe he didn't think this was as significant as I did, or maybe he thought Sam was lying to him. Either way, this entire portion is completely ignored. One problem that amateur interviewers have is sticking too rigidly to their list of questions and not adapting to the subject's answers to previous questions.
And he also had a zillion kids, so I mean, yeah.
Really? How many siblings do you have?
I don't know, dude. The internet's too f***ing weird to give out all that information.
Oh, you don't even want to say how many because you're afraid that it will
yeah, by all
compromise
means,
your
keep talking
privacy.
about it. Is there any way you can cut this out?
This happens a lot where the interviewer is untrained or doesn't have a good rhythm with the subject, and both of these are true in Ian's case. Most of this is cut from Ian's video, but he keeps questioning Sam about past stunts and remarks that could be perceived as offensive, and each time, Sam gives the same answer.
Is it valid for me to just not care about that? I'm just trying to do what's most entertaining. Can I not give a f about that at all?
He doesn't care. He's making videos that he believes are entertaining and isn't focused on whether or not it offends people. Personally, I would have avoided this line of questioning entirely and dug into the tangent about Sam's opinions on free speech, because Sam seems to be a lot more open to that angle. At their core, the questions Ian is intent on asking are unproductive, coming along the lines of, why are you the way that you are? At any rate, the interview comes to its climax when Ian asks Sam about Danny and whether or not he feels responsible for her substance abuse problems. I think at this point, Ian has realized the only substantive thing he can direct the documentary towards is how Sam is apparently enabling her self-destruction, and it's at this point that Sam finally spills the beans.
I'm curious about your relationship with Danny. Have you tried to get her any help?
No, seeing as she's a girl I paid $500 to shave her head and pretend to be my girlfriend, no, I haven't tried to get her any help. Should you want me to try?
Wait, okay.
I don't know her that well. It's probably not my business to get her off drugs.
Revealing that everything Ian has seen has been staged. Danny, the dental office, the rap career, even the slingshot. As Sam explains how he and his team set up each of these ruses, you can see Ian's shock turn to disappointment. He begins to realize his documentary has stacked up to be a complete miss.
Ian! You silly guy!
And she doesn't do drugs.
No, she does hair and nails.
I
don't know if she actually...
Danny's not on drugs.
No. She's a good actress, right?
Oh! Are you kidding me?
No.
What the f***?
It's not easy to say that I'm like happy with the conclusion, because I'm still wondering kind of what's real and what's fake, legitimately.
There isn't much to say about the rest of the visit, as neither Sam nor Ian show too much after the interview. Ian expresses his dissatisfaction about how things turned out, and that he thinks that Sam acted a little selfishly. I can definitely see why he felt that way. Ian came to visit Sam so he could get a look into his life and learn what motivated him, but instead he came away with more questions than answers. You can tell he's going through the motions at the end of the video, not able to draw too many meaningful conclusions.
I would have been more stoked with the prank if he had allowed us to take a candid look at his life afterwards, but he shut us out. It seems like he really likes comedy, even if that means being an asshole to people.
Nonetheless, I don't think it was a total loss. He did, after all, get to be a part of a Sam Hyde video, and Sam definitely let him in more than any other outsider who has ever attempted to go toe-to-toe with him. I think there were some flaws with Ian's approach from the very start that hobbled his video, including questionable presentation choices and interview practices. I think his analysis of Sam was shrouded by his inability to get through to him, so he overanalyzed his character and drew the wrong conclusions. But honestly, I think Ian probably already knows this, which is why he didn't release the video until there was pressure to do so. Hopefully, this can be a lesson that informs Ian's future projects. Sam was an extremely difficult target, evidenced by the fact that nobody has successfully attempted a full-fledged Sam Hyde documentary, and Ian should be commended for his efforts. But for now, I would suggest he stick with less unpredictable subjects. And as a side note, I did reach out to both Sam and Ian for a comment on my video. I was going to ask both of them what they thought of each other's videos, and specifically ask Ian why he didn't release his video sooner. If they ever do respond, I'll post it either on Twitter or in a follow-up video. At the end of the day, we have two similar creators who had two completely different videos they wanted to make. Ian wanted to make an earnest documentary on Sam Hyde, but Sam wanted to make a fun vlog. It's true that if Ian had come in with less ambition and rigidity, he could have had a more enjoyable experience with Sam and filmed a vlog along the lines of the VidCon content he had made with his friends Max Mofo and Filthy Frank. It's also true that if Sam had let Ian in on the joke and allowed him to get the information he needed for the documentary, Ian could have come away feeling more fulfilled. But only one of those videos was going to be born out from this encounter, and Sam Hyde had the home field advantage. In a game like this, the winner takes all.